What's up, everyone? Aaron Nagler here for PackersNews.com, live on Facebook late, was it Tuesday afternoon? Not a whole heck of a lot going on Packers news-wise, but as I am wont to do, I'm jumping on Facebook Live to talk to you fine folks and see what's on your mind, see what possible things you have swirling around in your head in regards to the green and gold, the Green Bay Packers. Obviously, as of today, we are 1 week away from the scouting combine in Indianapolis. This time next week, I will have touched down in fair Indianapolis, and we'll start up the annual tradition of poking and prodding and looking at hundreds of college football prospects. Hello, everyone joining in. Justin, Luis, hello, TK. Raleigh, North Carolina, man, love me some Raleigh. I watched the Packers lose the Super Bowl to Denver in Raleigh with Corey Banke. Jennifer, hello, how are you? Callie, what's up? Thanks for checking in. Myrtle Beach again. What's up, Andy? Nice to hear Packer Talks. Whit, thanks for showing up, man. I love the interest. It kind of blows me away every year, every day. We have these Facebook Live chats. It doesn't matter the time of the year. It doesn't matter in season, off season. No matter the time, no matter the place, Packer fans are ready to talk some Packers. Michael, what's up? Iowa, how you doing? Darren starts us off with the question, do we look at Sitton again? The news just breaking a little while ago. Tom Pelissero and the NFL Network reporting that the Bears are planning to move on from Josh Sitton. He will be a salary cap casualty. I said it on Twitter and I'll say it here. No. And if you need a further explanation, Mike McCarthy is still the head coach in Green Bay. And that is pretty much all you need to know. Obviously, a lot of smoke around the release when it happened. Both sides have certainly, through intermediaries and through sourced reports, kind of tried to get their side out there. I don't think we'll ever really know the exact reasons and what went down, but we do know that McCarthy and to a lesser extent Thompson had grown very weary of dealing with Sitton, especially his continued, I guess, vocal presence in the locker room, his poisonous attitude, and his penchant for sitting out a lot of practice time. After a while, McCarthy got very fed up with it, and Ted Thompson got nervous about what Sitton's presence in the locker room would do to the younger guys. So that's why they essentially moved on, and I don't see them inviting them back into their locker room anytime soon. Mooner, what's up, man? Thanks for joining us. Would you trade a second for Peters? Ooh, Nate, that's a great question. Probably not. Now, they'll most likely get a third-round compensatory pick. I probably would give a third. I tend to think another team may go a little higher than that. The other question I have about all the reports about Marcus Peters possibly being traded is if there's this much smoke around him possibly, being available for trade, it sure makes you think that if they don't find a trading partner, perhaps they're going to cut him. So maybe the play is to just wait and see if he's free. Because if that's the case, he would be cut and not count towards the compensatory formula. It would make a lot of sense to try and go after. But giving up draft capital, I'm not entirely sure that's the way Gutekunst would go, especially for a second. Update on Jari Evans, nothing except that he did check in on my Twitter feed yesterday, or 2 days ago. I put up a clip of he and Corey Linsley getting out on a screen. They did a great job in the home Detroit game of syncing up their footwork. And he had responded, years of getting out in the screen game, which was very apparent. But as far as his contract status, not a peep yet. We'll probably start hearing a little bit more on him, Morgan Burnett, and all their pending free agents a little bit more next week once the combine starts up. All the agents, all the personnel people, all the coaches, they'll all be in one city, and all the media will all be in the city at the same time. And that's when we'll start to hear. Things will start bubbling up then. Are the Lions a threat next year or nah? Greg, that's a good question. I think we're very early in the process to try and figure that out. But I think with Matthew Stafford, they've always got a shot to be trouble, especially for the Packers, until the Packers can prove they have a semblance of a pass defense. Stafford's a very good young quarterback. Well, not so young anymore, but a very good quarterback. Obviously, he's got his faults, and I think those are well documented, but he's always going to be a problem for Green Bay. And as far as now Matt Patricia coming in, you have to wonder how quickly their defense will be able to turn it around. So it remains to be seen, but I wouldn't take any team in the North lightly. When you headed to the Combine, I will be in the Combine a week from today. I take off 11:30 next Tuesday morning. How much will Cobb and Nelson take for a pay cut? No idea. Hopefully we'll start to get clarity on that next week. I would tend to think Nelson will undoubtedly take a reduction. I'm not so sure about Cobb. I know Starks is long gone, but did he receive a head injury from the car crash? I don't know. I know the car crash was a seemingly bad one involving a semi, but I haven't heard either way. What kind of money do you see Moncrief getting? Yeah, it's a good question. It depends, I guess, what the market ends up being around a lot of those wide receivers and what the salary cap number finalizes itself as. I wouldn't be surprised if it's around $10 million. Maybe a little less than what Devontae Adams got, but he'll have a market. There's no doubt about it. Cobb stay. Brandy, I think Cobb will stay. On offense, we need right tackle, right guard, tight end, and O-line depth. Agree. Not so much at right guard. I think McCray is your right guard. I think they'll plug him in there, and I think he'll play very well. Now, I do think they will draft along the offensive line. I don't think there's any doubt about that. And I do agree that right tackle is a major need. Who knows what happens with Brian Bulaga? He certainly won't be ready for the beginning of the year. They have to protect themselves there. They may even cut him. That's a possibility. So, yeah, I think right tackle definitely, and tight end, no doubt. And would the Packers kick the tires on Doug Martin? I tend to doubt it. I think he's a good back, and he's clearly been productive throughout his time in the NFL. Had his ups and downs down there in Tampa Bay, but, I think they got a real good look at what those two young guys can do. You throw in the addition of Ty Montgomery, and you also have Devontae Mays, who you really don't know what you have there yet. And maybe someone falls to them in the draft that they like. I don't see them spending free agent money on a running back. Now, that could change because I don't know how Gutekunst sees the position. Maybe he values it a little bit more. Maybe he wants a little bit more experience, veteran depth, who knows. But my first guess would be no, they probably won't go that route. Will Devontae Adams be back? Ron, I hope so. He signed a 4-year contract extension. What are our defensive adjustments, 3-4 or 4-3? Craig, they'll be Pettin's defense is a 3-4 base. It's got base principles out of the 3-4, but as Pettin has been very clear on, they will adjust to whatever personnel he is given. And he will be flexible depending on the opponent, week by week. If he thinks a 4-man front will be more effective against a certain opponent, he certainly won't shy away from that. You saw that a lot in his time in Buffalo, not so much when he was working with Rex Ryan here in New York, but when he was up in Buffalo as the defensive coordinator, not when Rex was there. When Rex became head coach, that's when Mike Pettin went to Cleveland. But when Pettin was defensive coordinator in Buffalo, you saw them use quite a few 4-3 concepts, a lot of 4-man lines, a lot of 4-3 under fronts. So don't be surprised if the Packers are very malleable as far as how they work from week to week. Jimmy Graham, says Ronnie in all caps. It's a possibility. I wouldn't dismiss it out of hand, but I do think he's going to get paid some big money, and I hesitate to say that the Packers will be all in there. Now, I know Gutekunst has said they will investigate everything, and they will certainly do their homework on it. I'd be very surprised if any kind of serious market coalesces around him, and I think it will. I'd be shocked to see them getting into a bidding war for Jimmy Graham. Now, I could be totally wrong on that. Like I keep saying, we don't have a track record to go on when it comes to Gutekunst, but I'd be very surprised. Let's see. What will the Pack do about tight end? Frustrating how bad to mediocre the position has been. I couldn't agree more. It's been hard to watch, and it's funny because you look at what they did last offseason, both signings there early on in free agency with Bennett and Kendricks, and you thought, okay, here's their attempt to make over that position. Now we all know how Bennett blew up and kind of flamed out in their face, and Kendricks was less than dynamic, and now Richard Rodgers is set to be a free agent. They really kind of missed the boat last year in not drafting a tight end in a class that had several talented guys throughout, and now they're facing a class which is much shallower. Though there's still talent to be had there. There's not as much choice as there was last season. So I think they have to draft somebody and they have to get somebody in free agency. Now, whether that's one of the big names everyone has seen on their various free agent lists, whether that's Jimmy Graham, whether that's Trey Burton, whether that's Austin Seferian-Jenkins, who knows? We'll see what kind of, if any of those guys are actually available. They could still get re-signed by their respective clubs. But I do think they got to sign somebody in free agency, and they do have to look at the draft. And not necessarily a premium pick. They could do anything from Dallas Goedert on the second day to Fumagalli on the third day. Who knows how they go about it, but I think they need some kind of combination there. Kick the tires on Tremont for quarterback depth. I tell you what, I don't think that's the world's worst idea. I'd be surprised if the Packers did that. I think they want to stay young at the position. But he played well in Arizona. There's no doubt about that. He sure looked like he still got some tread on that tire. So maybe they do. The thing that I keep thinking about when this question comes up is, look, their pass defense has been god awful for the last 2 seasons. I think that's a fair reading of the situation. And in that time, in those last 2 years, they have not called Tramon Williams at any point when he's been available. And he's been available. And their corners have been struggling mightily. And they haven't called him. So I would be very surprised if they turned around now. Now, I know it's a new GM, so maybe. But I'd be very surprised if they turned around now and said, yes, please, Tramon, come back on a 1-year deal. And who knows if Tramon would be open to it. Maybe his exit left a bad taste in his mouth. I don't know. Any update on the money Bennett owes the Packers? I haven't seen or heard anything yet. Again, that's one of those things I think we'll start to hear at least a little bit more of next week at the Combine. Nick Nelson as a punt returner. Andy, it's not the first time I've heard that suggestion. I think it makes a lot of sense. I think he could help them from scrimmage and on special teams. Bears released Sitton. Yes, they did, Andy. And he's not coming back to Green Bay. Graham is done in the Seattle system. Possibly. Pass rush, take pressure off the corners. Yeah, it's part and parcel, right? It's a symbiotic relationship. You got to have coverage to get to the QB, but you also need somebody who can win a one-on-one to create some havoc up front. I do think they should be looking at edge rushers as their primary need. Now, that doesn't mean you just automatically take an edge rusher in the first round if there's not somebody there that you consider value at that pick. If you have a much higher rated corner there, I think you got to take the corner. But yeah, we'll see how their board falls, and we'll see who falls to them. Why do you like McCarthy? Is he a relative? That's phenomenal. No, I think McCarthy is a good football coach, and I think a lot of fans don't give him his due. So I try to be fair with Mike, unlike a lot of people who I think are reactionary towards him and say stupid stuff like, oh, he's nothing without Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers made him, without even beginning to think about the fact that Aaron Rodgers, as we know him today, doesn't exist without Mike McCarthy. So, it's great that people talk about McCarthy riding Rodgers' coattails, but without McCarthy, there is no Rodgers, and that's just a fact. Sorry. Because Mike is a hell of a coach. Correct, Christopher. Starting running back week 1. That's a really good question. I will say, unless Aaron Jones comes into camp and just blows it up in pass protection and turns heads and people are going, holy cow, he's really improved in that regard, I still think it's Jamal Williams. Now, I think Aaron Jones will certainly see the ball and see the field a lot more, but I think they will most likely ride with Jamal Williams as running back 1 for now. Now, again, I'm saying that in February. A lot can change. When can they restructure contracts? Pretty much at any point they can agree to it, come to an agreement in principle. Again, we'll start to hear those kind of rumblings most likely next week in Indianapolis. Where does Ty line up most the next year? Ooh, good question, Greg. The most, I'd probably say third down back, like in the backfield. So I guess you'd say running back, but a lot of times when he's in there, he's the reason the Packers like him, and I think his value comes from Rodgers' ability to use him as kind of a chess piece, where if he sees something from the defense, he reads something at the line of scrimmage, he knows what the coverage is going to be, or he wants to see what the coverage is going to be, he can motion Montgomery out. He usually, not always, but usually has that freedom at the line of scrimmage, so he can use Montgomery to either slide him into the slot, take him out on the perimeter, and inevitably that the defense has to tip their hand because they have to adjust to that motion, and then Rodgers is off and running. And I think that's where his value is, and I think that will come mostly on third downs. And I don't think he'll be limited to that, but I think that's where we'll see him the most. You do realize they should have lost every game with Hundley, right? Alex, you do realize that Hundley was one of 21 other guys out there, right? Pick up Aqib Talib if released. I think he's definitely worth a look. There's no doubt about that. Talib, for all his problems off the field and all his attitude, man, he's probably the kind of attitude the Packers defense could use a little bit more of. Do you think the Packers would be interested in Brian Cushing? No, I don't. He's one strike away from a year-long suspension, and he's not the player he once was after his multiple injuries. I think he was a good player. He's probably still a serviceable player, but he's not someone I think I see them spending free agent dollars on. Do we have enough talent at cornerback to focus on edge rusher day one? Well, day one is one pick, right? It's 14, unless they drop down or unless they jump up at the bottom of the round like they did back when they got Clay Matthews. Yeah, I don't think they're boxed in any way, shape, or form at any spot. What they need is talent. They need a difference maker on defense, and that difference maker can come at any number of positions, whether it's edge rusher, whether it's corner, whether it's safety, whether it's defensive line. It doesn't matter. They just need a difference maker. So I wouldn't be looking for them to be boxed in so much to a position. You want the best player, the guy who's going to create the most disruption. That's who they need. Because right now they've got a lot of good players, but they don't have a lot of field tilters. I don't think they have any field tilters. As much as I like Kenny Clark, as much as I like Mike Daniels, their games are great, they're not field tilters. Clay Matthews used to be a field tilter. He's not anymore. They need someone who offensive coordinators need to worry about, who quarterbacks need to account for every single down. And right now, they don't have one. Do you think the Packers would consider bringing back Josh Sitton? No, Kerry. Need a free agent corner, need some veteran experience. I tend to agree with that. I think they will look at corners in free agency. Now, again, I don't see them getting into a bidding war with anybody, but I do think they'll make those phone calls, no doubt about it. Zach suggesting Aaron Colvin. I think he makes a world of sense. I am interested to see what his market is like and how many teams pounce on him, but I do think that's a guy the Packers would spend a little bit more money on. Trade for Patrick Peterson. Well, I don't think that's happening anytime soon. Draft Lamar Jackson in round 3. John, if he's available in round 3, they should run that card up. Absolutely. I tend to think he'll be taken by them, but I love the idea of him coming to Green Bay and sitting behind Aaron Rodgers and getting the chance to learn a pro system and getting into McCarthy's quarterback training. I think that's a great idea, but that's round 3, man. I think that's wishful thinking. We'll see though. Every year we say, "Oh, this would never happen in the draft," and then something like that happens. You never know. Allen Robinson or Jarvis Landry, who would you rather see Green Bay pick up? Well, if we're going to be way out there in pretend land, land of make-believe, I'll say Allen Robinson, but I don't see either of those guys coming to Green Bay. Jarvis Landry, they already have Randall Cobb, who's probably a better player. They don't need Jarvis Landry when they have Cobb on it. And the other idea that people float is cut Cobb and get Landry. That makes no sense at all. When Cobb is just as talented and has all this time invested in the offense and has all the chemistry with Aaron Rodgers, you're going to cut him and bring in a guy who's basically going to do the same job, probably not do it as well, and probably cost more money. I don't get that. Once Landry does get signed and people see how much it's for and how little production he has in his new place, and then they look at Cobb will look like a bargain. Yeah, maybe not a bargain, because $12 million against the cap is a lot of money. But he won't look as bad. And as Allen Robinson goes, yeah, who wouldn't love Allen Robinson? But one, I'll be very interested to see if he actually makes it to the market, if he doesn't get re-signed by the Jaguars. And two, I mean, if he does hit the market, he is going to get some big-time money. And I don't see the Packers laying out a huge spread for another wide receiver after they just played Devontae Adams. Derwin James at 14, since 42 is a free agent. I think Derwin James would be a great pick. I don't think it's so much about Morgan Burnett being gone, because that's why they drafted Josh Jones. Because they knew Morgan Burnett was set to be a free agent. More often than not, when you look at the Packers, that is how they operate. They draft guys in anticipation of other guys becoming free. That's one of the reasons they got Jason Spriggs, because they were guarding against David Bakhtiari walking in free agency. Well, as we know now, that didn't happen, and thank goodness for the Packers, because Jason Spriggs has been close to an unmitigated disaster as a tackle. But that is kind of their MO. They look down the road. They don't usually, they have an occasion, but they don't usually draft for an immediate need based off somebody leaving the year of. Trade Rollins for Eli Apple John. Okay, first of all, Eli Apple's going to be a free agent, so they don't need to trade for him. But two, who's trading for Quentin Rollins after he's put nothing but horrible tape out there, and now he's coming back off of a Achilles injury? Nobody's trading for that. Let's see. Sherman. John, we'll see if he actually becomes available. I've heard a lot of noise around Richard Sherman and possibly leaving Seattle, but I haven't seen anything concrete on that. Offensive lineman in the first or the second, or wait for the late rounds. I mean, they've had a lot of success in the late rounds, but you can't put it, you can't say it's impossible. I'd be surprised if they went there in the first, but in the second, maybe. If it's a right tackle, somebody they feel that can step in and start right away, they're going to need one. But I do tend to think they'll wait till the third day. They've had a lot of success there. Heck, they've had a lot of success not only in the late rounds, but even with undrafted guys. So, well, like I said, it wouldn't be a shocking development, but I tend to think they'll wait. Going to need a right tackle and a right guard. Nah, Ryan, they got a right guard. I'm telling you, man. Everyone listen to me right now. Justin McCray is your starting right guard, or at least he'll be slated to be, and he should be. He played so well down the stretch. I can't begin to tell you. Going back and watching the tape, this guy, they're going to plug him in, and he's going to be their right guard for the next 5 years. I'm telling you right now. And I don't ever, you guys know me, at least those of you who come here every day, I very rarely go out on a big limb like that. But I'm telling you right now, Justin McCray is your right guard. He's that good. He's ready to start right now. Do you think Jordy will be the TD leader next year, or Adams? Whew. I'll say Cobb, just to make people mad. Manziel for backup QB. Man, wouldn't that be something? I'll tell you what, it'd make my job interesting. Is the cap a concern? No, not really. We'll see what happens in free agency as far as who they retain and who gets let go. The two big questions are, how much is the cap actually going up? And then what is the Aaron Rodgers deal going to do as far as creating cap room? Because ultimately, if and when they get an extension done with Rodgers, they will undoubtedly take his cap number, not way down, but down significantly. And you throw in a couple other, the Jordy restructure, the expected Jordy restructure and things like that, maybe a Cobb restructure, and they'll have room to operate. There's nothing there. And then the other big expected move I would expect would be restructuring Clay Matthews. You put all that together, and there's nothing there that precludes them from making any kind of move that they want to make. Rodgers comeback player of the year. Chris, that would be interesting, right? Any chance Kendricks is good enough to be the impact tight end they need another year? After another year? I doubt it. He is kind of what he is. I think he's a great option as your number 2. Don't love him as a number 1. He's okay down the field. He's not dynamic, but he can be productive. There's no doubt about that. He's not a great blocker, but he's a willing blocker, and that's half the battle. So you definitely like to upgrade there. But I tell you what, he's a body, something they don't have a lot of at the moment at tight end. Now, it's February, so they don't need a ton right now. But I think they have to improve at tight end. There's no doubt about that. DeMarcus Flores, if he's somehow available, Tyler, the Cowboys will be franchise tagging him. That came out yesterday. So you can strike him off your free agent list. And this is what I say every day, and those of you who come here every day know what I'm talking about. That's why when you look at those free agent lists, you can just wait until the franchise tags get meted out, so to speak. The window for doing so started today and goes through March 6th, I believe. So we'll find out these next couple weeks how many teams are keeping guys in-house via the tag. Thoughts on Roquan Smith? I think he'd be a great addition. I think he's a really good player. He's the kind of player that they could definitely use, inject some life into that defense, some attitude. He's a sideline-to-sideline guy. You put him next to Martinez, and you've got a really, really good kind of pairing there. And then you throw in the possibility of Matthews moving inside at times and being multiple with those guys. And then I think you're kind of cooking with gas. Now, is he going to be there at 14? Do you take him at 14? That's going to be a question for Gutekunst, and I think he will. There's a chance he's available there. There's also a chance he gets taken before 14, but yeah, I think he's going to be a really good player. Nelson with Rodgers still has a lot of football to give us. I tend to agree. If I remember correctly, the 2010 team won the Super Bowl based more off the overall depth. Well, it was it was certainly partly due to the depth, since they had 16 guys on IR. Part of it was moves that were made in season, such as picking up Howard Green. But yeah, they certainly had a lot of moving parts there that stepped up and played well when they needed to. Guys like Brandon Jackson, who definitely was not a dynamic back, but very much helped in pass protection, catching balls to the backfield, etc. Frank Zombo, who started in the Super Bowl. People tend to forget that, but Zombo still playing for the Chiefs, not an all-world talent, but a guy who did his job and did it well. Those type of players, yeah, it was filled. That team was filled with those type of guys. It was a deep team, Aaron. Yeah, that's what I was literally just saying. Fumagalli, second round pick? Ooh, I don't know about second round pick. I think a day 3 pick. Man, those are some Badger glasses you're wearing there. I don't see Fumagalli as a second round pick. Do you think Mike Pettin will be effective? Yes. I think it was an excellent hire. I think he will revitalize the defense. Some of that obviously will be down to what kind of pieces he has to work with, but I love him as a coach. I loved him when he was here in New York. I loved him as the head coach of the Browns. I thought he got a raw deal there for the most part. I think he's one of the better young defensive minds in the NFL, and I think Packer fans are in for a real treat with him at the helm. All right, guys, I'll take one or two more here. Zach, you can watch the video back when I'm done. The 4-3-3-4 thing, I went kind of long on that a little earlier. Thoughts on the backup QB? Dan, they need the competition at that position. There's no doubt about it. They got to draft one, probably got to bring in a vet, not only just to push Hundley, but hopefully to supplant Hundley. Because I think with Hundley, you pretty much know what you have. He could still improve. There's still obviously room there for growth, and you don't want to dismiss the guy, but at the same time, he had an awfully long audition period, and there are a lot more negatives than positives. So I think you got to try and improve there. There's no doubt about it. Jackson or Ward? I like Jackson, but I think both are going to be good players. But I do think Jackson's probably the guy I prefer. But now you're really going to hear 100 different probably opinions on that between now and April from people all around football. But I really like Jackson. I just like Iowa players. I think they're coached really well, and I think they all make really, for the most part, they come into the NFL and they're really good pros. That's it for me today. I'm sorry if I didn't get to your question. They do fly by rather fast, but thanks for checking it out. Make sure you're checking PackersNews.com each and every day, each and every hour for the latest on the Green Bay Packers. And until tomorrow, you guys have a good night.